authority to accomplish this very critical and important mission. The President established the Office of Homeland Security and the Homeland Security Council following the tragic events here in New York City and in Virginia and in Pennsylvania on September 11th. His charge to the nation's new Director of Homeland Security was to develop and coordinate a comprehensive national strategy to strengthen protections against terrorist threats or attacks in the United States. Tom Ridge was twice elected the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is our neighboring state that we share the longest border with here in New York. He served from 1995 to 2001. He kept his promise to make Pennsylvania a leader among states and a competitor among nations. Governor Ridge's aggressive technology strategy helped fuel his state's advances in the priority areas of economic development, education, health, and environment. And then, of course, he was our nation's first Secretary of Homeland Security. And now it is an honor and a privilege to introduce to you the Honorable Governor Tom Ridge.
I want to thank you for that very kind introduction, and thank you very much for your very warm reception. First of all, I want to recognize Craig Eden, you and your team, for extending such a gracious invitation to join you this evening. 8-to-1 odds seem to be about right. 8 Democrats for 1 Republican. I think this crowd can handle it. You know that? I think I can do that. I think I can do that. I'd also want to recognize and add my congratulations to the honorees. Rosemary, Jimmy Stroke was a Pennsylvanian. You probably knew that, from Indiana, Pennsylvania, so thank you very much for that reference. And to all the others, in particular my friend John Cassavetes. John and I were known each other for about 10 years. When I first ran for governor, a Philadelphia newspaper writer said I was the congressman that nobody ever heard of from the city that nobody ever went to. My home was in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's up in the northwestern corner. And in spite of that, John was gracious enough and his family to open their home, introduce me to their friends, do a little fundraising, John. So it's nice to be back among your friends as they honor you this evening as well with your colleagues. Appreciate that very much. I have made a transition into the private sector, into private life that has been fairly easy. I spent about 25 years in the public sector. If you counted my time as a staff sergeant in the infantry in Vietnam, my time as a prosecutor, 12 years as Congress, governor for 6 years, 9 months, and 5 days, and some of the stuff I did down in Washington, I did this public sector for a long, long time, and I relied heavily in 8 elections on good people like you. And I know full well that I don't get elected unless I have terrific support from the people that lick the envelopes, make the phone calls, knock on the doors, good people like you who believe in the two-party system, but believe the Republican way is the way of the future. So it's a great pleasure to spend this evening with you. The transition was only awkward in one particular area, and it was transportation. I'm a recovering elected official and politician. But when I was the governor, the state police provided me the ride. When I was secretary, the Secret Service provided the ride. And the last night on the job, the head of the Secret Service detail shook my hand and he said, "Good night, Mr. Secretary, good night and good luck." Now, I got a threat matrix every day. I never saw my name on it. And I thought, what's the good luck about? When I woke up the next morning, I understood completely. My kids took one car to school. My wife took the other car elsewhere. I'm in the house. I want to go somewhere, and I got no way to get there. So during that week or two afterwards, I asked my children, how many of you ever borrowed a car from your kids? Now my children, hopefully, they're all very, very respectful. Remember one night I said, Dad's got to run to the mall. Can I have the car? He got the big grin on his face. I said, be careful, be respectful. I'm your father. With the grin on his face, he flipped me the keys. He said, Dad, 2 things. I said, what's that, son? He said, watch where you park it, and don't forget to fill it up with gas before you get it. Now, as former Secretary of Homeland Security, you should know, how many of you have been pulled aside for secondary screening in the airports? How many of you have been pulled aside more than 24 times in the past 2 years? 3 dozen. If I have to kind of fabricate this, I'm going to win, so put your hands down. I remember one time I'm in Charlotte, they got this plexiglass lane, they put me in the plexiglass lane to get the secondary screening, and there's a businessman trying to hurry up and get to his gate, and he looks at me, waiting to be screened, and he looks at me, and then it dawns on him who I am. He just started laughing. The only other adjustment I made is you think you get a lot of notoriety because you're in the cabinet and you're on TV once in a while. It's a Saturday afternoon, I'm no longer in government. I'm feeling good. I got torn dungarees on, I like the garden, I look like I'll get out, I probably got a torn shirt on, I got the car, I'm filling up with gas, and an older woman comes by the pump next to me. She's having a tough time getting it open in gas tank. She's having a tough time, so go over and help her, and she said, would you help me pump the gas? And so I helped her pump the gas. She tried to tip me $2 because she thought I was working there. It's nice being in the private sector. It's even nicer to be anonymous, but it's pretty tough to do these days. But I haven't forgotten or lost my fervor for the Republican Party, and that's why when I got the invitation to join you tonight, I wanted to accept it and spend just a few moments, since I'm strategically placed before dinner, which is a reminder that there's a governor on the governor's comments. So I have a few thoughts I'd like to share with you. It won't take too long, but I think they're important given what you are about and what the country's about over the next several months in terms of the presidential election and what we're about for our future. You know, I've said all along that politics is a means to an end. Politics is like 20th century talk. Purpose has to be the 21st century talk. Politics is a means to an end. You run to win and you win to govern. And we have to be in the business of winning and moving as aggressively as we possibly can over the next couple of months to try to restore some balance to congressional races. Obviously, you've got state and local elections, and as important, or nothing more important than the presidential race. We're a nation of war. We're challenged around the world, not just because of just Al-Qaeda and terrorism, but since 9/11, we've seen other national security challenges emerge with Russia and China and Iran and elsewhere. But there are economic challenges that are equally abundant around the world because it's now a different place. In the 50s and the 60s, we used to make the only widget, gadgets, and gadgets in the world, so we had a virtual monopoly. We could sell because we're the only ones selling. It's entirely different now. And so we need a leader that understands that our national security and our economic prosperity are tied, they're inextricably linked together. You can't be prosperous without being secure, and you can't be secure without being prosperous. And we need a leader who understands, an experienced leader who understands that, who is respected and admired around the world. And there's only one of those leaders running for President of the United States, and that's Senator John McCain. Yeah. But the one thing we need to understand in this party is that unity doesn't mean unanimity. It's not about group speak or group think. We have standard and core value system that binds us, but we must be a little bit more tolerant, or by judgment, more tolerant, and accept more diversified views of opinion from time to time and emerge from honest, good, hard-working Republicans. So we may differ on some issues, but we must be unified in order to elect Senator McCain, President McCain. And I think it's about time that we